Hello, my friends. Welcome back to another episode of Quest for You. So happy you're here. So happy you decided to join in. We are approaching Christmas everywhere around the world. For those of you who celebrate Christmas, it's usually a time I look forward to. But I will talk more about Christmas this week, so stay tuned. Today I want to talk about solitude. Episode 121. And maybe you recall the quote I shared with you a few episodes ago from one of my favorites, Rilke. Make your ego porous. Will is of little importance. Complaining is nothing. Fame is nothing. Openness, patience, receptivity, solitude is everything. Solitude, a beautiful word, and the topic of today's episode. And if you want to learn from others about solitude, you should turn to the great writers of our time. Writers spend many, many hours alone, and they often tend to write about their experiences. Another German writer I adore is Hesse. Listen to his quote about solitude. We must become so alone, so utterly alone, that we withdraw into our innermost self. It is a way of bitter suffering. But then our solitude is overcome, and we are no longer alone, for we find that our innermost self is the Spirit, that is God, the indivisible. And suddenly we find ourselves in the midst of the world, yet undisturbed by its multiplicity. For our innermost soul, we know ourselves to be one with all being. Being alone is not the same as solitude. I can keep busy all day long. I exercise alone, I run my errands alone. I often work alone in my office. I sit and write these podcast episodes, and yes, I'm alone the whole time, but I'm keeping busy. I'm distracted. And that is not solitude. Seeking solitude means to consciously trying to find seclusion, away from distraction. So why seek solitude, you wonder? Aside from the great writers, we could ask most introverts, and they would agree that time alone is when they recharge their batteries. Maybe that is why I love it so much. But there's more. There's also a connection between aloneness and solitude that I want to explore in this episode. And I realize that not everyone is made for solitude. Some people just cannot handle the thought of being alone. But I believe that a little bit of it, at certain times, is extremely beneficial. In fact, I want to propose solitude as a tool on your quest for you. Deliberate solitude. This means consciously seeking out time alone. Yes, that means time with yourself, away from people and devices that replace them. And it's time doing very little. So no, not time for cleaning out the garage. It's time to think, to relax and to breathe. But not a forced kind of thinking. Rather, a time where you allow your thoughts to flow. Without worrying, planning, dwelling on the past or the future. Just time alone with yourself. It's time for being. It's difficult to describe this time, this solitude time. So let me share what I do. I often seek solitude at home because it's simply more comfortable for me to be in my own environment. And I intentionally leave large slots on my calendar open for this, to be alone. And yet, when I am, I always do something. Sometimes it's conscious doing, chores, tasks, responsibilities. And other times, I slip into the distraction trap. I check something on the internet, only briefly, so I think. And then hours later, I wake up like from a dream with my time all gone. Finding solitude is hard, no doubt. The best place for solitude is often in nature. It involves some movement on our part, in the form of walking, and some positive stimulation for our mind. It allows for thoughts to flow. I find solitude at the beach, watching the waves, or going for a walk in a park or in the hills. I also found it, surprisingly, in public places. Even a crowded coffee shop. If it has the right ambiance, I can tune everything out. but it doesn't work all the time. If I want to find solitude at home, I really have to make an effort. I have to turn off all my devices, make sure there are no tempting foods in the house and I'm not hungry. And basically, anything that poses a distraction, I need to be aware of it. So even that bathroom that requires cleaning, I may end up doing that. Writers, even back in the day without internet and TV, they would often, and some still do, go far away from the nearest village or town, rent a cabin in the woods equipped with only the basics. And why? So they can focus on writing. And therein lies the power of solitude. The quiet and distraction-free time allows you to restore your reserves and gain strength for your craft. It allows you to focus on what matters to you. If your craft is writing, pottery, singing, or any other creative endeavor, solitude is key. It's a time where you gather new inspiration. It's a time where you battle with a thought, an idea, a problem, without resigning to Google or Candy Crush. Solitude is that time where you're present with yourself, with your surroundings, and with the moment. It's time to listen, not talk, and to hear what wants to speak to you. Solitude is both healing and empowering, relaxing and recharging. And we all need solitude, whether we realize it or not. Whether we think we need it or not. Everyone needs it, and some more often than others. The problem is that today's solitude is not true time with ourselves. It might be alone time, but it is distracted alone time. We are, in fact, more alone than ever. Due to the comfort that technology allows us, we have more time. We may not notice it, but we do. But how do we utilize this time? The simple fact that I can stay in my pajamas all day and get done just as much, if not more, as someone physically doing the same activities may make this clear to you. Subtract all the driving, parking, and walking time, and you have your time savings. So I can drive to work by logging into my company computer first thing in the morning. I can have conversations with people at the office via phone and Skype. I can even attend meetings via teleconference. And then I can go out to lunch by ordering food online. I can run to the grocery store to shop for dinner by using Instacart. I can return items I purchased online last week by placing a shipping label that came with my order on the same carton it came in and leave it downstairs with the FedEx guy who comes and picks it up. In the afternoon when I don't feel well, I email my doctor who calls in a prescription for me, which I have mailed to my house. And in the evening, Blue Apron or some other service delivers my dinner, which I cook for my family. And then I decide to drive by my friend's house to check on her via text. And then I look at wedding pictures from another friend overseas via Facebook. I send a few thank you notes to friends who came to my birthday party via online cards. And then I stop at my library to check out a book, which I read until I fall asleep. Pajamas still on from the morning. Modern life. Amazingly efficient. Yet, paradoxically, very lonely. While I was connected all day with many different people, I was physically alone. I have many days like this, not necessarily in pajamas all day, but extremely productive without going anywhere. And I'm sure you have too. It's the convenience we love about our life, the comfort and the extra time that we appreciate. But sometimes I wonder, does all this extra comfort and time make us feel uneasy? Does it only increase the need for more connectedness? Is that why we are on 5 different social media platforms at once, having 10 different conversations going at the same time, some with friends, others with complete strangers? Is it because we are not comfortable alone? Because we miss that face-to-face interaction, where we are present with that one person completely for a given amount of time? And so maybe we feel the need to compensate. Some shopping, some messaging, some reading, some TV, whatever distraction we can find. Are we more alone than ever, yet also more distracted than ever? do we cling to the constant communication in an effort to avoid loneliness? Maybe because we are afraid of loneliness. Somewhere along the path to a more luxurious life, we have forgotten how to be alone, how to stay connected in our own company. Or is it because modern life is in itself so lonely, so disconnected, that our needs for connection and togetherness are simply not met anymore? So why, you may ask, do we need more solitude? The need for solitude hasn't changed. Whether we are connected with people in person or online, we need alone time. People back in the day who did not have electronics needed it just as much. Solitude is recharge time. Yet finding solitude is hard, harder than ever. In the past, when people packed their bags and hopped on a train or a plane, they were gone, truly gone. Today, we are never really gone, no matter where we are physically. By default, the world is always on. Our devices may look dark, but they are on, sending us alerts and notifications all the time, distracting us from our work, throwing our concentration from one area to the next within seconds, without ever allowing us to even finish a thought. We have to really make an effort to disconnect these days. The off button isn't that easy to find anymore. Have you noticed that? To completely shut down my phone, I need both hands. So we don't even do it anymore. Besides, it feels kind of good to be called and notified. It makes us feel included and informed and connected to the world. All of humanity's problems, the French scientist and philosopher Blaise Pascal wrote in 1654, stem from man's inability to sit quietly in a room alone. So you see, this is not just a problem of modern times. I'm not an expert on seeking solitude, but I'm fascinated by it. We are always on, so it's quite amazing to observe what happens when the talking stops, when we do, in fact, find and press the off button, when we venture out into that enormous emptiness that is our own being. Solitude, silence, no alerts, notifications, and nothing to do, only me. I have to plan it if I want it, and that is when I notice how hard it is. The Sunday morning walks I so enjoy. I give them up so often because when the time comes to head out, I realize I'm losing time walking. I have other things I need to do. The Thanksgiving holidays I left blank on the calendar. The closer they came, the more social gatherings I booked, just because I had time. And now with Christmas ahead, I have to be very deliberate and not book time away from what I want to use these days for. I'm a living example that solitude is hard, even though I'm alone a lot, that we rather avoid it even when we look forward to it. It's hard because it's probably very uncomfortable to be with oneself. By just being, with presence and with what is. We are so used to doing and interacting all the time, so we're not good at just being. The thing is, solitude doesn't mean being alone. Time spent watching TV alone, surfing the web alone, those are times truly alone. Because you're not with yourself, you're outside yourself. True solitude, on the other hand, is the purposeful act of choosing to seek one's own company. It's being in the quiet company with oneself. Instead of distracting your state of aloneness and being busy with living out there, you spend time living inside of you. And then solitude becomes a source of strength, because instead of depending on the presence of the crowd and the devices, you learn to depend on yourself. And as Paul Johannes Tillich notes, language has created the word loneliness to express the pain of being alone. And it has created the word solitude to express the glory of being alone. It is in taking time out to be with oneself where, as Pablo Picasso suggests, serious work is possible. So, I encourage you to allow yourself a few minutes of solitude in these upcoming days, the Christmas days or whatever holidays you celebrate. You may not know what is possible, until you give it a try. Have an amazing day. Until next time, much love.